In our commitment to be in right relationship with the descendants of this area's indigenous people, we place a small basket of black oak acorns on our altar each week. In doing so, we acknowledge the Nisenan people are here among us today, though nearly invisible after generations of erasure and exclusion from California's history. We understand we are on Nisenan land that was never ceded, and the original tribal families have yet to recover from the genocide of their people. As residents or visitors in Nisenan land, we support the Nevada City Rancheria Nisenan tribe in efforts to stabilize their people, as well as the campaign to restore tribal sovereignty through federal recognition.
The intention this morning is to have the members of the board offer this chalice lighting. And we're going to begin with Janet Dunstan, live from home via Zoom. This is by Reverend Suzelle Lynch, Nurturing Beauty. So we begin with Janet.
Our community is filled with beauty.
When you open the door to greet me, that's where the beauty begins.
When you share with me what's important to you, beauty is there as I listen.
When we join hands to practice compassion, beauty's heart blooms like a flower.
When we teach or learn or work for justice, beauty abounding sparks joy in all.
Let's light the chalice for beauty now. The beauty we seek, the beauty we share, and the beauty we nurture together.
Thank you. That's actually an embodiment of board work, right? Adapting as you go, figuring out what's needed, and everyone chipping in. Thank you. I invite everyone at home to light your chalice at home if you haven't already. Tie it to this community and to this tradition.
Yes, UUs are good at improvising, right? Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. I'm Cheryl Morris, your worship associate this morning. This is another first for me, my first Soup Sunday and congregational meeting. It's very meaningful for me to experience traditional parts of congregational life that I have only heard about or watched on Zoom. And maybe for all of us, the pleasure is sweeter and the joy is deeper after our many months of isolation. We continue with this month's theme, Nurturing Beauty. It's inspired some really lovely services, hasn't it? I'm remembering Beth's beautiful flower ceremony, and last week, Kevin and Lindsay's celebration of all things creative. Who knew that flowers could be made, piano could be played, and ballet performed by people who have never done such things before? Kevin invited us to bring special stones today to enrich our Joys and Sorrows collection. I wish there was a time for everyone to talk about their stone, but I will take advantage of my spot up here by sharing mine, and I hope to find out about others over lunch. I knew that somewhere I had a box of stones dating back to a summer my family spent in Oregon, probably 65 years or so ago. To my surprise, after giving it some thought, I went straight to them, packed away in a box of other assorted treasures. A wave of emotion came when I saw my father's handwriting on the box, agates from Oregon. For a moment, I was back there with him, walking on the beach. I know each of your stones has a story, and we will all be contributing our stories, spoken or unspoken, today. Each stone is unique, but they will make a beautiful, ever-changing mosaic from which we get to choose each Sunday. And they will grow more lustrous week after week as we entrust them with our deepest joys and sorrows. Welcome. It is good to be together.
Corona Soup, a modern retelling of Stone Soup by Dr. Tamara Pizzoli. Signora Costanzas was the kindest little lady in all of Campo dei Fieri. She lived in the area since she was a young girl, so she knew everything there was to know about everyone in the quartiere. And though she had reached her golden years in the same quaint neighborhood, Signora Costanza remained young at heart. After buying fresh fruits and veggies for the day at the market square, she could be found chatting up some friends down at the piazza corner. She was feeling particularly spry. She joined in on a game of calcio with the neighborhood kids. Signora Costanzo always had a kind word and a caramella to offer the children she'd run into daily. This included Gaia, who lived with her mother and father in the apartment below Signora Costanza's flat. In fact, Signora Costanza never complained about the rowdy kids who lived above and below her, and those who kept a bunch of noise right under her window. Gaia and her family were quite fond of Signora Costanza, and because they knew she lived alone, they made sure to check in on her from time to time. Signora Costanza first heard the news of a great change no one was expecting while at the bar close to her home. She was enjoying her usual cappuccino and cornetto. There was a talk of a terrible flu of some sort going around in the north of Italy. Many, many people were becoming extremely ill. For some, the worst happened. Scientists and doctors were calling the new illness both coronavirus and COVID-19. What's more, the virus seemed to be most dangerous for elders in Signora Costanza's age group. Over the next 2 weeks, Signora Costanza witnessed her Roman neighborhood transform into a place that was barely recognizable. There were talks of social distancing. Soon after, wearing facial masks outside became a requirement. Perhaps the most difficult new rule for her to follow was niente baci, no kisses. In her opinion, the Italian standard kiss on each cheek was the only appropriate way to say hello. On the 9th of March, the entire country of Italy received jarring news of a new decision made by the Italian government. There would be an official lockdown. No one would be permitted to leave home unless absolutely necessary. Overnight, restaurants, bookshops, stores, and even schools completely closed. Only grocery stores, pharmacies, and the post office stayed open for short hours. Even Signora Costanza's cousin, Carlos' fruit and veggie stand was shuttered, and not a peep was heard from the children above or below her flat. A cloud of gloom and despair set in across the city of Rome. Gaia and her family thought to check on Signora Costanza many times, but the coronavirus could be transmitted through close conversation, so they decided it would be best for them to just stay home. Dawn always comes, even after the darkest night. It was unclear who had the brilliant idea to create moments of joy through music. But the neighbors of Signora Costanza's building began gathering at their windows each evening around 6 o'clock. They brought instruments and snacks. their best dance moves, and hope. Together, they sang and laughed and cried and wished for better days. Gaia looked forward to the neighborhood's quarantine party each night. She always glanced up to make sure Senora Constanza was tapping along in her window. She found her there each time. It wasn't until the 5th or 6th night of singing that Senora Constanza did not show up at her window. She wasn't there the day after either. I'm going to make sure she's okay, Gaia told her mom. But both her parents reminded her that doing so could be dangerous for Senora Constanza. Gaia thought and drew and read and thought some more about what she could do from a distance all day. Then finally a solution came to mind. That evening, while gathered at the windows with her neighbors, Gaia explained her plan, and their support was sent immediately with love and huge smiles. Eggplant, tomatoes, corn, zucchini, dandelion leaves, peas, and a package of pasta zipped right into Gaia's family kitchen. Gaia's mother had already begun the broth. Silently, the pair worked side by side. First, olive oil to cover the surface of the pot, then a bit of garlic simmering on low heat. They chopped and scooped and lifted and poured all of the love and sweet intentions they had in and around them inside that pot. The delicious aromas rolled around the kitchen and the courtyard. And when the soup was finally ready, Gaia's mother ladled it into a spill-proof container and sealed the lid. But how do we get it to Senora Constanza? Gaia asked her mother. Then before she could answer, Gaia dashed to the balcony, grabbed a pail, and carefully placed the container that held the soup inside. She tied it to a nearby rope and hoisted it up with her family's help. And just as the soup arrived at Senora Constanza's window, a blackbird with a bright orange beak landed on the sill as if someone had called for it to come. It tapped 3 times on the window pane, and seconds later, a frail hand emerged, clasped the pail's handle, and brought it safely inside. The next day, all of the neighbors were greeted by a warm and welcome message. Grazie.
Thank you to Dr. Tamara Pizzoli for allowing us to offer the story. She has a wonderful effort she calls the English Schoolhouse, which is headquartered in Texas and Rome, and is a venture of creating stories for this time and honoring the range of human beings more fully. So she's got a whole set of really wonderful stories, so we're grateful for the chance to use it. For today's ritual, this weekly ritual of honoring our joys and sorrows, we have invited you to bring special stones to contribute, as Cheryl mentioned, to our Joys and Sorrows stone collection. For those who are new to this particular ritual, in the same way that people in many religious communities light candles to quietly mark the prayers, the hurts, the cares, the gratitudes in their hearts, here we invite people to place a stone in a bowl of water, a gentle and fire-safe reminder that you are held in love and care, whatever you carry in your heart. I've invited you to bring stones that have meaning to you and that you're willing to part with in order to contribute some measure, some quiet measure of that meaning to this community and to the people who will choose those stones over the years to mark their own joy and their own sorrow. If you did not bring a stone today, I invite you to bring a stone next week or another Sunday, and simply to add it to the table when you arrive or to add it to the bowl during joys and sorrows. If you're on Zoom this morning, You are welcome to type into the chat something of the joy and the sorrow that you hold today. I'll read some of them out loud. And if you're here in the room, I invite you to come forward with your joys, your sorrows, and if you brought any, your stones. And if you wish to place a stone in the bowl of water to mark what is especially resonant in your heart today. I brought a Petoskey stone, the state stone of Michigan, where I was born. It's carved into the shape of a heart, a little heart. It's fossilized coral out of which people make jewelry and for which people search the beaches. It's named after an Odawa chief, Pedosega, turned into Petoskey, which means rising sun or rays of dawn. It's not the most perfect or beautiful example of a Petoskey stone, quite honestly, which seems fitting somehow. And it has meaning to me, so I'll be adding this. I invite you to bring your heart and all that it holds to this shared moment. And afterward, we'll bless these stones together. Now would be a perfect time to name the joy of Toby playing this morning. Thank you. Thank you. I think this morning, too, of the now more than 1 million people who've died in the pandemic. That number too large really to grasp, other than to know that the sorrow, the grief is broad and deep. I think of the people in that area of Buffalo who were not only terrorized by the shooting, but also lost a primary food source for that community as well. There's so many other things that are likely stirring in us, some very close to us in our own lives and those we love, and some in the nature of the world and the politics that we inhabit. I invite you to take a moment to search your heart, to see what else remains there, and to use this time consciously to hold each other in love and in care. A blessing on these stones. I invite a blessing on these stones. True, these stones do not need a blessing. They are made holy already and will be again and again by the touch of many hands, the tears of many hearts, the gratitudes of many spirits. They will be anointed week after week by the precious oils at the fingertips of those who have borne tenderness beyond words, as well as unspeakable pain. They will be clasped and consecrated in the determined hands of toddlers who will look into an adult's face and encouragement, and then, with a blend of reluctance and fascination, let them go, enticed by the possibility of a splash in the water. These stones will be baptized in the heartache and the hope of octogenarians and tweens, each living near the edge of important life thresholds. These stones are and will be blessed by what is said and by what is left unsaid. They will be blessed by the electric shared silences held by entire rooms full of people. They will be blessed by prayers known only in the singular hearts of the petitioners and the praisers. They will be held one Sunday, one joy, one sorrow, one elation, one worry at a time. They are and will be blessed by you. No, these stones do not need a blessing as they take on for now this mantle, this sacred ritual role, and yet we will invite a blessing on them, that they may be touchstones of healing and connection, of empathy and compassion for all the hearts and souls who will yet walk down this aisle one Sunday at a time to mark the vulnerability and the strength of their very human hearts and of those they love. May these stones be so blessed and be such a blessing. Steve, nice to have your drum playing too. Thank you, thank you. At the surface, that familiar stone soup story is a story of fear, of stinginess, of outsiders tricking people into sharing food with them and with one another by claiming to have a recipe for stone soup. A soup that would taste, oh, so much better if it just had a few onions in it. Though I like to think I'm not one of those reluctant, stingy people, I do often need to be coaxed to share what I'm worried I don't have enough of. Even so, beyond that fearful stinginess factor of the story, stone soup is ultimately about a community and generosity, about what we can do together that we cannot do on our own. I was glad to find Dr. Pizzoli's very contemporary retelling, Corona Soup, with its celebration of the generous and ready willingness of neighbors to support someone they love. No trickery or coaxing needed, just a caring invitation. It feels like a story not only tuned to the past 2 years of living with the pandemic, but also, and perhaps even more so, a story for the next few or many years. That is the combination of our Zen pause to stop and become present and a reminder to turn yours off if you haven't already. So I'm thinking that that idea of generous community for each other will be an even more important story for these years to come, for this time to come, perhaps more than we know. Maybe we'll be able to simply put out a call for help, or maybe we'll need to pull out a few stones once in a while and remind each other how much more delicious our shared life could be if only we had a few carrots. The past couple summers, UUCM has provided a space out front here for a mutual aid effort undertaken by the Nevada County Left Coalition. Volunteers set out food, clothing, household items, toiletries, diapers, garden plants, available to anyone who needs them. It's quite wonderful, and it's undertaken in the spirit of the mutual aid movement, which emphasizes solidarity rather than charity, embodying the idea that we're all in this together. So it's not about helping you so much as all of us helping each other. Mutual aid is about conscious cooperation for the common good. One of the slogans or hashtags, instead of "we got your back," is "we got our block." We got our block. In times when it might be tempting to disengage and feel powerless, mutual aid invites people to connect, to plug in where we can make the most impact very, very locally in our neighborhood, in our community. Mutual aid invites everyone to add their ingredients to the soup that's cooking and to be nourished from it as well. Our family ministry team is inviting all of us to support a vegetable garden out behind this building once again, in the backyard that's not otherwise used, to help our children grow vegetables to contribute to the mutual aid program out front on Saturday mornings. Whether you've got time and some grass pulling or weeding willingness, or gardening expertise, or time to water, or other resources, please see Renee Wiley or Joe Waters, who's in back here, to let them know, hey, I'd like to connect to that. Let's help our children and each other practice that message that we're all in this together. That soup will taste so much better if it has a few potatoes in it, which is one of the foods they're planning on growing out back, in fact, to contribute to mutual aid. As we regather as a community and ask ourselves, what are we here for now, as we consider this large soup pot of a congregation and the structures of religious community that function as stones of a sort, the base to which we add all the real ingredients, all the real flavors, I'm feeling tremendous gratitude for all that members and friends have been bringing to this soup over these past years, the past many years, and these past couple years in particular. Your ingredients and your generous sharing of them have made all the difference. And in this new moment, informed by everything you've been experiencing and thinking and feeling these past 2 extraordinary years, I find myself wondering, what of yourself do you really want to bring to this soup now? What ingredients do you have that you want to add? Do you feel ready to add? Do you feel maybe even called to add to it now? Maybe different than 2 years ago. Maybe different than last week. And I'm wondering what in your heart of hearts you're wanting to be coaxed out of you at this point in your life. If someone said, oh, this would taste so much better if it had some, and they name something that you have the seeds in you for, or that you have stored down in the far corner of your root cellar, that you're reluctant to bring out for any number of reasons, but also deep down want to be able to bring out, to add to the soup, what would it be? I'm curious. And finally, what are you wanting from this soup now? The soup that the entire community creates together. What nourishment are you seeking? What hope or longing or change in you do you want to be fed by being part of this ongoing cooking effort? I know, small, light questions for a Sunday morning. And I am an internal processor, so I have to go home and think about it all by myself quietly. So let's talk. I'm aware that we could simply use the same recipe the congregation's been using for a while, but we have each been holed up in our homes and our smaller worlds, and we are not the same. The world is not the same. In these ways, we are kind of like the wary villagers in the stone soup stories. So I would ask you, no matter what you've brought before, no matter what you're already bringing or not bringing to the soup, and if you're brand new, you might have another community in mind, or you might use your imagination for what you might want to bring to a community that you wanted to be a part of. What in yourself do you really want to bring to it now? Deeper than that, what in your heart of hearts are you wanting to be coaxed out of you at this point in your life to bring to it? And or what are you wanting now from this chowder or bisque or broth to which you're also contributing? So I'm trusting that the quick processors and the external processors among us will help us get started. Because what I'd like to do is invite some of your answers to hear, how would you answer any of those questions? What are you wanting to bring? What are you wanting to be coaxed out of you? What are you wanting to receive as nourishment from this soup at this point in your life? Because right now, that stone and that water, they're smelling quite good. But it would be even better if it had just a little bit of whatever you're about to say. Anybody, what are you wanting to bring? What do you want coaxed out of you? What are you wanting to receive? I invite you to be brave. Let's just share together what some of those things might be. It doesn't have to be a final answer, but what arises now. Lisa.
Just like being free to express, to sing with other people.
So looking for music and something you want to bring, something you want to receive, both? Both. So music, that chance to express freely and have that shared experience together. Dahlia. Movement, physical movement. You want to bring movement and also to draw from it is what I'm seeing on your face. Right. Music and movement, two expressive pieces. As you're raising your hand, Siobhan?
I would really like to get to know people better.
Siobhan.
We were at Connie Wright's house last night, and I learned for the first time some amazing talents that people I've known for a while had. And I couldn't believe it took me this long.
So Siobhan is saying she would like to know people better. She was at an event with Connie Wright and was finding out amazing things about people, their amazing talents, and she couldn't believe it took her this long to find that out. So to bring, I hear in that we bring those pieces of ourselves, we share just that knowledge, right, of who we are, but also we get to receive from that knowledge. Yeah. Katherine.
Sounds like circle supper would be a good thing to add.
So Katherine's
Outdoor ones while the weather is still nice.
Katherine's got an idea for that, maybe circle suppers, which are small groups where people just sign up, sort of random gatherings of 6 to 8, some small group suppers, and a potluck. And she's suggesting outside might be the way right now. Jim.
I want people to enjoy my art, which is hanging in the wall.
Jim has a way of making announcements like that, yeah. We'll name it later, but there's an art show in the library that will change periodically now that we're back in the building. Thank you for setting that up. And it starts this time with Jim's beautiful photography. So on your way, when we're going to soup, check out the library or anytime. So a sharing of your artistry is part of what I'm hearing. I'm hearing in the fact that you name it, that that's important to you, that you get to share and be seen. And I think that's key to what Siobhan's saying too. When we share ourselves, it's not just that we share, but that we're witnessed, that people actually see us for who we are. And that's a key part of what makes a soup, right, flavorful and rich. Yeah. What else? What are you wanting to bring, or what are you seeking or wanting coaxed out of you?
Something is humor and something that makes us laugh.
Yes, Mary's saying humor, something that makes us laugh. Yes, I think about this a lot because I tend to be serious a lot of the time, unless I'm super comfortable and familiar with people, and then I'm hysterical. But that takes a bit. Thank you. Humor, right? Laughter. It's connective in the same way that, in a similar way that tears are, right? Gwen.
A willingness to show up.
A willingness to show up. In which category is that?
I think it's what I receive.
Ah.
That sense of human presence, in my presence.
So Gwen named the willingness to show up. And would you say the presence line again so I can repeat it?
That being in the presence, physical presence of another human being.
being in the physical presence of another human being and what is received from that, right? And what's given, yeah. A few more. What are you wanting to bring? What are you wanting to receive? What are you wanting coaxed out of you that there's a seed for, but ooh, it needs a little encouragement or invitation? Cats.
Talk, conversation. I'm not much of a talker. I'm kind of a silent type, and but I really want to talk. You know?
So Katz is wanting some talking and conversation and saying at the same time that he's not really a talking type. Right? For those of us who are quieter, that's a dilemma. And so what are the containers that we can create? What are the soup bowls, right? That we can create for that give us that opportunity to connect. Steve.
To revitalize my love for the rivers, lakes, and mountains around us.
To revitalize my love for the rivers, lakes, and mountains around us. Is that something you want kind of coaxed out of you or nurtured and supported in you, that love for this incredible place that we are in? Thank you, Steve. Scotty.
I want to be a participant in groups that gather not to accomplish a purpose, but for shared authenticity.
So Scotty's naming not a group that gathers for a particular purpose, but gathers for shared authenticity, which is a different kind of purpose, right? But not a tasky purpose. The purpose, in other words, it's really changing the purpose, right, to that really deep connection.
The gathering per se is the purpose.
Right.
The connection.
The gathering itself is the reason to gather and for what it offers.
I want to offer more people experience in our walking group, which meets twice a week and is a very gentle walking group for people who want to walk slowly, and it also has opportunities for walking faster too, and some socialization. And also our book group, which I think is just about ready to go to 2 book groups again. So I think that I feel I'm very pleased that we've had them for a while, but I feel it's time to revitalize them and have more people coming in.
So Teresa's naming 2 pots that she stirs. One is the walking group that meets twice a week, and you can do slow and gentle walking, or you can do more quick walking. And I will name for you that moving forward in space, like walking or riding a bike or skiing, our eyes naturally scan the environment, and it has a soothing effect on us. So it's not even just the physical exercise, but the moving forward while you're connecting, bonus. And she names the book group, which is about ready to split into 2 book groups. So ways to connect and do some talking.
I just wanted to say one thing. One of the things that some of you may remember from Soul Matters is joy spotting. Walking in a group is a wonderful way to do joy spotting. Every morning when Bill and I even walk alone, we do a lot of joy spotting.
Teresa's naming that one of the great gifts of walking like that is the invitation to be joy spotting, to notice, right? To notice beauty, notice joy. Shanti.
Getting together again for Thanksgiving and Christmas, beautiful potlucks.
Getting together again for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So these are potlucks held in the room, right, for anyone who wants to join that day. So that large gathering which shares food and conversation and connection. A couple more. Yes. More fun.
Well, I want to give a shout out to Elizabeth Rose,
Mm-hmm.
who organized this so many. We had on the last playing miniature golf.
Susan Merrill's naming having more fun, and she's giving a shout out to Elizabeth Rose, who's been organizing a whole bunch of fun things, including miniature golf yesterday, which I so wanted to get to. Right, playful fun, right, which is the same thing. It soothes us and helps us connect actually at deeper and more full levels. We've got that little bit of playfulness in the mix. Claire.
So as a child, we had at least once a year a big family gathering outside with food and games and volleyball. And I hear so many similar things, but not quite that, and just getting outside. And for me as a child, it was because each year people were a little different and, you know, grew a little bit or got a little older. So just that annual cycle of doing that together was really a blessing.
Claire's naming from her childhood the annual rhythm of these outdoor gatherings with games and food and any number of things, and the way that builds over time, right, as people change and grow, Yeah, so to build in those rituals of repetition that we connect. How about 2 more?
I need more spiritual food.
Mm-hmm.
I need to care more and be more participating in activities that feed me in how to live in the world, and how to reinforce my own values about how to live in the world.
So Dawn is naming the need for more spiritual nourishment, right? And to bring yourself to more of those opportunities at the same time, right? So that we're strengthening our values and developing our capacity to live in the world now. Thank you, Dawn. One more. Who's been thinking, I want to say something and haven't yet? Karow.
I want to inspire more awareness of climate change so that our children's children will have resources in a good life like we had.
So Carol's naming a passion, right? The concern for climate change, so our children's children will have the resources they need. And so part of what I would observe, Carol, is because that's a passion for you, part of what you hope to get is other people who will care about it, right? That's part of what you're seeking when we're together. I invite us to take a breath. I wasn't intending to get to answers exactly, but to plant these, they're more than seeds, right? They're seedlings, they're transplants. They're already growing in your home starter kits. They're already growing in you. And if they're to happen, the question then is how? So one way is to name it and hope somebody else will do something about it. The other way is to say, what can you bring to the soup to help that happen? And maybe it's simply the asking. Maybe that's the starting place. But also to say, what would help the flavor of this soup, the richness of this soup, better offer that for others, not just yourself, right? If it's going to offer it to you, also offer it to others. So I thank you. Thanks for your willingness to leap into that moment of conversation. I know that many of us would need much more time to think and reflect on such questions. And I've asked them today, as we celebrate the beauty of community, again, to plant the possibilities and to invite you to bring the ingredients you have available to the soup that we're making. The stone soup story was first written down, as far as anyone knows, in 1720, with many variations over time, and one can only assume before that time. And in most versions, the outsider leaves the stone with the village and often writes down the recipe, which goes something like, start with a stone in a pot with water, add this many cabbage, this many carrots, this many potatoes, this many onions, cook it for this long, take out the stone, and eat the soup. That's usually the recipe. And in some tellings, the villagers discover, to their surprise, that all kinds of stones will work. Little stones, big stones, stones they have nearby will actually make just as delicious a soup, and so the recipe gets passed from household to household and village to village. We have a chance to make this stone soup anew as a community. It's the nature of our Unitarian Universalist tradition to recognize that the recipe of a given congregation is always, always determined by the ingredients its members bring to it. There's a pot, and there's a stone, and there's water. All the rest is what these particular people bring to it, what you bring. UUCM has the container of the tradition and things like bylaws and structure. And this community has the water of its almost 30 years of existence now, and its reputation, and its current relationships. The world has plenty of heat in it right now, of many kinds, and there are any number of stones that will work as the base. What kind of soup it will be now remains to be seen. I don't know it. It remains to be cooked and stirred and tasted and seasoned. What this soup is and offers now will depend on what you and I and everyone involved brings to it now. May we bring our most real ingredients for our own sakes, for each other, and for the benefit of those who are to come. So may we be.
Our Share the Plate partner this month is Child Advocates of Nevada County. And it's interesting that both Lindsay and I have personal connections to child advocates. She serves on their board, and I have been a court-appointed special advocate for many years. You heard their executive director, Marina Bernheimer, describe their programs during our first May service. Their work to support and nurture vulnerable children and families has its own kind of beauty. Like the stones we have contributed today, it is sometimes rough and raw, sometimes more shiny and polished, but it's always heartfelt and so greatly needed. 25% of our offering today, or more if you so designate, will support child advocates in their important work. Here's Allison to explain the various ways you can contribute.
Your generosity remains essential to our ability to sustain the work of our community. There are several ways to contribute. You may text an amount to 833-579-0483, give via our website at uugrassvalley.org, via PayPal at paypal.me/UUCM, or mail to UUCM 246 South Church Street, Grass Valley, California, 95945. Thank you.
Thank you for your generous gifts. We dedicate them to helping all children find safety and beauty in their lives.
My day began with a hot water heater flooding the garage. That's how today, it's been that kind of day. Not, manageable in the scheme of things, but just like surprise things, or, Pam being sick today and Gail arriving and then needing to leave. It's been that kind of day. And so Toby, for the first time this morning, when I sat down, had no responsibilities and heard the music, my body just went, ah. So thank you for that. Cheryl, thanks for being worship associate on such a day, for being creative and flexible. And I'll need the thank you slide to remember all the thank yous I need to deliver. Eileen Hale is our chat host this morning. Eileen, thank you for doing that from a distance. Siobhan and Steve, thanks for navigating the audio-visual territory. Amazing, amazing gift to the congregation. Thank you. Thank you. Shanti, beautiful setting as well as the storytelling, and to everyone who brought stones. I've heard some of the stories. I want to know some more. Beautiful and clearly precious. Thanks to everyone who brought these stones too. They are beautiful. I loved watching them drop in one at a time and to watch what the water does to some of them. They'll be part of our new creation. Toby and Steve, thank you so much for the music today. To Lisa Hayden and Taylor and Janet and Scotty and Bob for reading today. Thank you very much. To our great greeters, Gwen, Jean, and Connie this morning, some of our mainstay greeters. So there is a soup lunch after the service, thanks to Beth Rose and Rain Thibault and their organizing, and those of you who brought goodies and soup. So right afterwards, just head on out to soup. And for those who are staying for the annual meeting, the meeting will start at 1 o'clock. Meantime, enjoy the art show and soup, and then come back. And thanks to George and Corey for helping us behind the scenes for this very hardworking worship team. We'll close with the song Answering the Call of Love, because this is really what the stone soup recipe is about, right? It's about asking, what is love asking of us now, this time, in this day? I invite you to rise in body or in spirit and to sing. Our closing words this morning are the words of Chris Rothbauer, a seminary colleague of mine. May our lives be reflections of the beauty, of the peace, of the joy that is possible in the world. And may the love we find in this place, the love we cook in this place, Sustain us as we go our ways each week. So may it be. I invite you to remember yourself connected to this community with this benediction we offer to each other each week. So that we'll extinguish the flame. Cheryl will extinguish the flame. Let us together carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again